The day I left home was a very interesting day. And it's something that I remember like it was yesterday because I felt so heavy in my heart. I'm one of those children who never really wanted to leave home. I always wanted to be with my family, my mom and my dad, particularly. And so going abroad was just one of those things that a lot of other kids are excited about. But for me, particularly, I was not. And I always tell my mom that she was brave and strong for me at the airport because if she had shed a tear in that moment, I probably would never have left. But when I think back to that day, it's been 17 years actually since I left. And when I think back to that day, I can say I'm glad that I did because there's so many lessons in life that I have learned. First, living in South Korea, then moving to the US, and having traveled to so many different places and met different people. It is not so much in the traveling, like the moving from point A to point B, but it's immersing myself in a different culture, in a place outside of home, outside my comfort zone, that has brought about these lessons that I can sit here today and share them with you. The first thing that I learned and the blessing that came to me from living far is learning how to stand alone. I can't begin to tell you how important it is to learn this vital lesson of life. Yes, we're communal beings. Yes, we thrive when we're among people and among our loved ones and our friends. But something that is very important is your ability to make a decision independent of all the voices. And when I talk about voices, I'm talking about the voices of even your loved ones, the voices of friends, the voices of family, the voices of the community. Whenever you come to a junction where you have to make a decision, how are you able to do that if your mind is crowded? The blessing for me, one of the blessings that I had living outside of my home country, away from my friends and my family, is learning how to make those decisions alone, being able to weigh pros and cons, being able to say, how would this benefit me? What are the facts? What are the potential consequences of a particular decision, and making that decision in real time? Before I left, I had a group of friends. I think we were about maybe 5 or 6. And mind you, we're just recently graduating from our teenage stage. We're 19, 20, 21. Most of us, that was our age group at that time. And the way in which those cliques of young girls work, even today, is that we sampled everybody's opinion about what we wanted in terms of if we were trying to make a move or a decision. I'll go to friend A, hey, what do you think about this? And to friend B, hey, what do you think about this? And to friend C, hey, what do you think about this? And ended up, sampling all the 6 to 7 friends, what they thought about a decision that pertained to me. Now, even though those kind of practices or that practice kind of kept us together as friends, but when I look back today, I can see how that was detrimental to my ability to move forward, because if just one person disagreed or had a different opinion about what I wanted to do, that was enough for me not to do it without even bearing into mind what that meant for me, not through their lens, not through their perspective, but for me. So living abroad taught me the lesson of standing alone. Initially, it felt like loneliness. Initially, it felt like I did not have my girls with me to help me through decisions, but it helped me really fine tune and listen to myself and weigh those pros and cons. So to every young person today who is still running back to a clique, you're probably 25, 26, 30, but you're unable to make a decision. It might be a good point to pause and think. You're sampling everybody else's opinion to get or arrive to a decision that matters to you. And you need to be able to cut it and understand that your friends play a role, but not everybody will be able to understand or wear your shoe. Not everybody will be able to see from your perspective. And if you go around and still go around asking, should I marry A, to every single one of your friends, you can now understand why you're in a constant state of confusion, because there are too many voices in your head. One of the blessings I had was quieting that noise, quieting all those voices, and really getting familiar with my voice. The second thing that I learned leaving far from home was learning how to appreciate my home country. I have said this before and I'll say it again. When you leave outside of your country, you appreciate your country not because your country is perfect, but you start to see that there is no perfect country. You start to realize that every country has its good, its bad, and its ugly. And while a lot of us are tempted to focus on the ugly of where we have come from, and that's the only story that we tell, we forget that there is beauty no matter how small. Living outside of my country made me to appreciate the beauty of my country. I'm not saying that my country is 90% beautiful or 70% or 30%. I'm not even putting a percentage to it. I'm just saying living abroad taught me that in all those countries that I lived in, I saw they're ugly. And I said, oh no, if my beauty is just 1%, I'm at home with that 1%. And I'll strive to make sure that the 1% does not remain 1%. Not by bashing, not by constantly calling out the ugly, not by telling the story with the ugly lens, but by telling the story with a beautiful lens. I remember vividly this experience when I visited Atlanta some years ago, and this group of men were talking about how horrible our country was. And let me tell you, this patriotism has sat with me from 2008 when I initially left the country. So when these people were talking about how negative and how bad this country was, I was just very unsettled by it. Why? Because I felt like there is no momentum in painting a bad story. That's my opinion. There isn't any momentum in painting a bad story, but there is so much if we can call out the good with the hopes that we can make good even better. And this principle I applied all through my life. And so I told them, I called this man out. I was like, no, you shouldn't talk that bad about your country. I understand the ills and I understand you're trying to tell a story, but you can tell the story from a positive light. Because to every glass that we own, a glass of water, it could either be half full or half empty. It just depends on who you're asking. And I choose to see it half full all the time when it comes to my country, because I have realized from living abroad that every country has its good, has its bad, and has its ugly. And so that was the second lesson that I learned. Third lesson that I learned from living abroad was to be tolerant of other people. Look, I went to school with Muslims. I went to school with Buddhists. I went to school with atheists. I met people that did not believe in the God that I believed in, but they were nice and good people. There were people that treated me fairly. There were people that were accepting of me and my belief. Living abroad taught me that a person does not have to pray in the same way and manner like I do, but they are still a good person. There's still someone that I can have a relationship with. There's still someone that I can listen to. Now, when I'm talking about relationship, I'm not talking about relationship in the essence where we have to really come down to the question of compatibility, like marriage. That's different. But I'm talking about people that I could relate with. I have very good friends who are Muslims. Very good friends. I have fasted in Ramadan with my good friends who are Muslims. I have visited the masjid before. I have gone to a mosque and seen how a mosque is, because I learned the tolerance of belief by living outside of my home country. Listen, by alienating people that believe different from you tells me that you have a low tolerance, or maybe you have a shaky belief in what you believe in. Because in how grounded I am, pretty grounded in my belief. It's not easily shakeable in such a way that I'm able to accept and recognize different beliefs, not in a threatening way, not as though it's threatening what I believe, because I'm pretty grounded, but more so understanding where they have come from. They were born into that environment. They believe that way because that's all they have known, and it has shaped who they are. It doesn't stop me from sharing my own belief, but what I don't do is I don't judge, and I don't make it look like my belief is on a higher pedestal than theirs. And all of this I learned living abroad. A lot of us have left our home countries but have not even shifted our perspective because we're still steeped in the old ways of thinking. You are many miles away from home, but your mindset is not open to other people because you've locked yourself in a cocoon. The world is beautiful. The world is multifaceted. Diversity is only beautiful if you allow yourself to enter or see other people's diversity without judging, without being critical, without trying to change them, but just understanding them and still being able to live with them or live among them in peace. That is a beautiful lesson that I wish for my children, that they would know and understand that their perspective and their way of life is unique to them. When they're among other people that believe the same, there's that liberty that they can experience. When they're among other people that don't believe, there's a level of acceptance and deep respect that they can give those people, even when there's a difference in perspective and a difference in belief. The fourth thing that I learned about living abroad is learning to be hardworking, learning to put one foot after another, to understand that nobody owes you anything, to understand that your decisions would take you from point A to point B, understanding that you have to align. Me and my siblings, we always make this very, funny joke. We say, hey, whoever picks you up from the airport when you land in America will determine the trajectory of your life in America. And I have thought about this, and I think it is absolutely true, because the people that you align yourself with when you come into a new country almost always determine the path that you will take. God forbid that you find yourself among mediocre people. God forbid you find yourself among people that are never asking for more, that are content with mediocrity, that are content with minimum wage, that are content with not getting themselves any better, we're not getting better with themselves. God forbid that is the person that picks you up from the airport. Let's just say that's where you find yourself. You should be challenging yourself to move above that mediocrity. So when you are picking somebody else up from the airport, you are showing them a landscape of possibility, not just by your words, but by your lifestyle. I remember my first day in America. There was no pickup. I actually spent the night sleeping at the airport because it had snowed that day in Atlanta and there was a lockdown. Cars were not moving. But when I left from there, I had to figure out where I was going to stay because I had to go and get a hotel. Actually, one of my auntie's friends picked me up. Thank you, Uncle Valley. Thank you for picking me up. Picked me up, took me to my hotel. And then from then on, I was working at the Carter Center. I had to figure out lodging. I had to do an internship at the Carter Center. And thereafter, I had to study for the bar exam. Because there was not a comfortable welcome where, hey, yeah, here's a room for you. Here's where you take your boss. I didn't have none of that. Kudos to those who have. But you see, that welcome to America taught me day one how to fight. I got into America fighting, and it is day how many? It's year 15, and I am still fighting. I'm still fighting to be better, fighting for more, looking at different things. And these are all lessons I learned while living abroad. Aligning myself with the fighters who are like me, aligning myself with a mentality that is not mediocre, getting to every step of the way and saying, if I got here, I'm pretty sure there's more. And I would sit down and, think almost like, what will it take for me to go from this point that I'm in to the next point? Celebrating every win, but always looking out for the next goal. This I learned living abroad. So when I look back and I see how, some of us take life with, I have arrived mentality. The only time you have arrived is when you take your last breath, when you die. For as long as you breathe, you have not arrived. So you should continue to strive. You should continue to figure out, how can I get better? Even your best has a better version of it. Even your ultimate has a better version of it. And so we're always looking for better. Lessons that I learned living abroad. And finally, the last lesson that I learned living abroad was learning to love and cherish my family. My family, I loved and cherished my family before I left. But you see, I got to understand the meaning of family living abroad. I was the first person from my immediate family that moved out to the US. And I talk about the US, not so much Korea, because I spent so much more time in the US and I was in Korea for just 3 years. Living in America taught me the blessing of family, taught me how to appreciate my family. And when I talk about family, it's not only by blood. There's family that is made up of friends who have become family, of strangers who have become family. In my case, past clients who have become family. I got to appreciate a support system, because one thing is for sure, in this country, without a support system, oh my goodness, it makes it even way harder than anything else. But when you have a support system, when you have people that are able to see beyond, I am fine. When they ask you, how are you doing? And you say, I am fine. And they're able to see beyond, I am fine, to really know that you're bearing a weight that you're not able to speak about. When you have people that you can have good conversation with, when you have people that you can go to and they are there for you, they can stand with you, they can pray for you, they can agree with you, it means all the lot. And this is coming from somebody who was once extremely lonely in a country like this. So if that's you experiencing a certain kind of loneliness, I see you, I hear you, I understand, and I know. And I pray and I wish that you will find a family, a group of people, whether by blood, related by blood, or just by bringing, or people that you have found that you can connect with, that they become your true family and help you through this season. But yeah, I learned to appreciate family deeply, deeply, deeply.